Welcome back to Nonsense, where I cover animated sitcoms. I'm Chris, and settle in, because this Rick and Morty breakdown is going to be the longest of Season 1, starting with the title, Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is a reference to the 1962 novel and the 1983 film of the same name, Something Wicked This Way Comes, which both feature the dynamic of a devil-associated character running a mysterious cursed item shop like we see in this episode. But the title reference isn't the only one the devil shop story is referencing, since it's a bit of a trope you may recognize not just from Something Wicked This Way Comes, but also Friday the 13th, the series, Needful Things, which is literally the name they give the shop in this episode, also The Monsters Ring, Twilight Zones, The Man in the Bottle, and a bunch more Stephen King stuff to say the least. It's a proper trope. So the writers saw this archetype and wanted to just write an episode about how Rick would react to a character like this, the same way they did with the heist movie or the superhero movie archetypes later on. But in the opening scene, obviously we meet the butter robot for the first time that we see so many times throughout the series and now ultimately ends up in Rick's trash dimension. Though maybe he'll find a way to turn back on and be happy down there, or he's just dead. Morty comes down for breakfast though, which is just pancakes this time instead of the usual full spread, so I have to play this from last season.
Is someone requesting pancakes? Because it feels like we eat them all the time.
But Morty wants Rick to help with his science project, and Beth, in this moment being an absolutely terrible mother and supporting Jerry being an equally bad dad, puts the responsibility on Morty to fix his father's insecurities by accepting his help instead. And it's just not a kid's responsibility to fix their parents, especially at that age. But Morty walks away disappointed, and Summer asks Rick for a ride to her new job before the theme plays. Afterwards, while Rick's flying Summer to work, we get a really short shot with a bunch of storefronts, the funniest of which is fat people's pajamas. Also, one just called Bowl, TVR, which seems like a DVR parody, and Acme, directly referencing Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. Summer unintentionally baits Rick into meeting her boss by telling him she doesn't want him to, and by implying that he's a nicer guy than Rick. Now, the shop has a semi-changing collection of stuff that I'm just going to cover all 51 items right here in the order of which they appear on the screen. I do want to say first, though, that the animation team was given the entire Friday the 13th the series to watch as inspiration for the objects in the shop, so while not every object is from that show, if the show has an episode about an object, I'm giving that explanation preference over other pop culture references. That being said, let's get into the evil artifact list. Starting with Mr. Needful himself, who is clearly visually based on Mr. Dark from Something Wicked This Way Comes, but since he's implied to be the devil, his character is probably supposed to be closer to Leland Gaunt, the polite but ultimately evil shopkeeper from Needful Things. The evil wig idea, I think, is a reference to Steven Spielberg's amazing stories, The Hell Toupee, which caused its wearer to commit murders. This is an old-fashioned perfume atomizer. I could not find anything that included an evil one of those, but there's an evil perfume trope that's always something along the lines of it makes people love you, but also makes you crazy in some way. That's the evil microscope he gives to Rick, which no, there's nothing like that out there either, at least not that I could find, but we know it makes you dumber. As for the evil vase back here that contains the ghost later, I couldn't find a specific ceramic vase that contained a ghost in any media, but ghosts being tied to specific objects are another kind of trope in these stories as well. These are called torsion pendulum clocks or anniversary clocks, and they're actually freaking awesome. I kind of want one, but without a curse. They were invented by Anton Hardin in 1879, and they're called anniversary clocks because they're designed to only need to be wound once a year. Although now you can just buy ones with batteries in them that last forever, but I feel like that kind of defeats the purpose. The only anniversary clock specific reference I could find was a story in Garland magazine, a popular writing magazine called The 400-Day Curse, which was powered by tragedy basically. So evil things just happened around it, but presumably it was causing them. And Friday the 13th, the series is an episode about a cursed pocket watch called 13 O'Clock, where a guy can pause time for 1 hour per murder, which would actually be incredibly useful if you wanted to commit a murder. Kinda curious which direction, if it was one of these two, they were thinking for that one. He brings up the evil typewriter, which is also a trope, and it's always that it makes the things you write, primarily murders, come true, which Rick confirms later on.
A typewriter that generates best-selling murder mysteries and then makes the murders happen in real life?
These, I think, aren't meant to be cursed objects. There's no real cursed Dreamcatcher story I'm aware of, or could find, and definitely not a worm or snake statue or whatever this is, but together I think they reference Stephen King's Dreamcatcher, the worm being the little baby form obviously, and while there isn't a literal Dreamcatcher in it, it's the titular name and one of the characters is the literal Dreamcatcher, and kind of makes the shape of one with his ghost dust or whatever. This is an Iron Maiden with an owl face on it. I don't think you need a cursed one of those, and I couldn't find any stories about one, but I assume it's basically haunted by its victims. This is a Chinese Nuo mask, which offers a couple curse options. They're traditionally used in opera and theaters, so if it's that option, then it probably helps you be an amazing actor in some way, with the cost maybe being that nobody ever recognizes you again. Or they're going with the older, more mystical view of them, where it was still about a performance, but there was a cultural process to imbue the mask with power, and the idea was that wearing it would literally bring the spirit of the deity or animal or whatever into your body, and that's where the performance came from. But since they were viewed as being literally imbued with a spirit of some sort, mishandling them always had dire consequences that changed depending on the deity, and a lot of them just didn't want women using them. I think this is supposed to be an African Dan mask. There's no specific episodes, but a cultural or tribal artistic mask that's cursed is like one of the tropiest tropes out there, probably just a general haunted item that you hang on your wall and causes havoc, because it's definitely just decorative based on the loop. Some weird undetailed glass shards and religious necklaces as filler next to a pretty generic crown, which is another trope. There are at least 6 properties I could find with the words curse and crown in the title alone, let alone how many don't have it in the title. They basically all just bring generic misfortune to the wearer. There's a picture back here. Maybe it turns whatever is poured into it into something else, but it's also addictive or something. The cursed instrument here, the thing I've seen most, is ones that play themselves. Or maybe there's a ghost attached. We've got another Dreamcatcher here, but on its own, so I'm thinking it causes horrific nightmares rather than preventing them. This is a Sansa, which is a shrunken human head, usually kept to prevent the spirit of the dead people from getting revenge. It's actually supposed to be protective, so I'm guessing it protects you, but by having the spirit kill anyone who gets close to you. Beneath it is just some indistinct ancient looking jewelry as filler. This is MC Shave's aftershave, the product Goldenfold takes to get laid that makes him impotent. There's this little alien doll looking thing. There are just so many little dolls, and this one is pretty nondescript, but honestly the closest thing I could find was actually an SCP monster that takes various little doll forms that all vaguely kind of look like this. It basically can't be destroyed no matter how much you try, and it makes you hear laughter more and more until you just die. There's no way this green egg guy with a sunflower face and arms and legs isn't something specific, but I've googled and cannot figure it out, so somebody please put it in the comments if you recognize it. I don't think it's Kermit the Frog, but I saw that guess a lot. I have no idea what this is supposed to be, but it looks like something. Lastly, for this shot, I'm just gonna throw up all this super undetailed stuff that don't seem like specific references at all, just in case any of you recognize them, so you can leave it in the comments. This appears to be a Hamza hand statue, ancient protective charms basically, probably another case of redefining protection as the curse. We've got a genie's lamp over here, which usually are their own curse, because traditionally genies are not the Disney kind who like you. They mess with you by granting the wishes you wish in ways you wouldn't expect with terrible consequences. A cursed globe, which isn't a reference, but if I had to guess, based on the most common things I've seen people do with globes, which is just spin them really fast just for fun and point to things on them. Maybe when you spin the globe, it makes you feel like the world is shaking and spinning around you, or maybe when you point to somewhere on the globe, it just teleports you there, but as you explore, you realize it's not the actual place, but like an evil trap, and it turns out you're actually stuck inside the globe. I think this is another African mask, again, usually meant to contain spirits or deities, so you probably just put the mask on and it grants you some kind of magic, but you slowly lose yourself. I think this is a radio. Friday the 13th, the series, has an episode about a cursed radio that lets you time travel in exchange for smearing it with blood of someone you killed. This pair of shoes are not the one that make you walk till you die from later in the episode, but cursed shoes are actually kind of a trope as well. There are at least 7 mainstream narratives I could find where cursed shoes make you dance or run until you die. Friday the 13th, the series, actually broke the mold by having an episode about shoes that made you popular, but at the cost of having to kill people. I'm starting to feel like most of the curses in that show are about having to just kill people. Here we've just got an alien head. Never in my life have I heard of a cursed alien head. I honestly don't know what the curse would be here. here, because I assume it would have something to do with aliens. Maybe you're just cursed to see everyone as aliens or something? Not sure. This is a mantle clock. Again, no specific mantle clock stories out there, but the Friday the 13th series, like I said earlier, had a clock episode where the clock let you pause time for an hour after committing a murder. I have stared at this thing for way too long, and I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. It vaguely looks like it could be a radio or a mini jukebox maybe, but I am not confident. It seems specific enough it was probably inspired by something, but my Google foo hasn't been strong enough to identify the inspiration. So leave it in the comments if you recognize it, please. This is a gramophone player with an animation mistake. This little arm should clearly be behind the table thing. Friday the 13th, the series, has one of these that makes people dance until they die, granting the owner of the thing extended life. And ironically, all the nondescript items I couldn't recognize were grouped together in this shot, but if you recognize any of them, leave it in the comments. When Rick walks to the counter, this skull candle and baby elephant in a tube were simply not here before and are not there after he walks away, and in fact the elephant thing is over here literally immediately when they switch perspectives. So this must have been an insert shot they added after most of the animation was completed. In the next shot we see a cursed Emmy, which is hilarious. Wonder whose it is. Guessing it makes you good at acting when you cover it in the blood of the innocent? Underneath it, I kind of think this looks like one of the 10 Commandment stones, so it probably leads you to a land of treasure, but you never get to enter, a la Moses. It's next to a cursed magic 8-ball, obviously referencing the literal movie about one of those, where you can get something amazing or get a horrific consequence based on the rule of the magic 8-ball. This is a German Pickelhaube, or pickle helm. It's actually incredibly famous, and was not just a military cap, but was used by Prussian and German police, firefighters, and a variety of other civil service members. The design originally was intended to help defend from sword strikes to the head, and this is actually one of the original ones. After only 2 years of use, the military ordered they be modified with balls on top instead of spikes, literally because soldiers kept stabbing their horses with the spikes on accident. So I bet the curse would be that it attracts horses to you and makes you the best horse rider ever, but you kill every horse you come in contact with. This is a bunch more of the cream he gave Goldenfold, I think. There is a Friday the 13th episode about cursed spectacles where they let you look through walls, but can also kill the people you look at. This is an Easter Island statue with a wig. Not entirely sure what that could be referencing. There are movies, books, and TV shows that involve Easter Island as a whole, and they include spooky things related to the statues, but nothing that's about a single cursed statue, let alone one with a wig. So I'm thinking this was just an animator having some fun, but we can wildly speculate. Since they're meant for protection, and it has a wig, I'm gonna guess it's meant to protect your hair, maybe for balding people, but it eventually makes you grow hair uncontrollably from everywhere on your body. Pretty generic looking dragon-crested shield, could literally be 1,000 different things. If it looks specific to you though, drop it in the comments. As with anything meant for protection, I'll assume it eventually reinterprets the meaning of protection. This is a cute little fox statue, nothing specific out there, but maybe it has one of the many fox deities out there in it, and you see like a little ghost fox running around and it leads you into danger or something. Friday the 13th has an episode about a cursed little phoenix statue thing that can revive people for you, but they turn into zombies basically, but as they feed on people, you gain extended life. I know this mask looks hyper-specific, but it's actually kind of generic and could be a lot of different tribal or African masks. Like with the other ones though, they're basically all meant to help you embody something from an animal to a deity or an ancestor or spirit. So I'm guessing along those lines again that it just takes over, but if you recognize it specifically, leave it in the comments. Here we've got a baseball mitt. The show Relic Hunter had an episode about a cursed baseball mitt that caused the users to disappear. Believe it or not, there don't seem to be any stories out there about a cursed handbell, at least from before the year this season aired, but I guess you maybe like the bell ding and occasionally use it, but eventually you just keep hearing it constantly, even when it's just sitting on the counter until it drives you crazy. There's nothing out there about a volcano figure thing. I assume it actually produces lava. Stone prayer hands, maybe your prayers come true, but you slowly turn to stone. A couple more designy masks, same guess as the others. They definitely just started using the masks for filler. A bowling ball, no pop culture stuff out there about a cursed one of those, but I'm guessing it'll grant you perfect games if you kill someone with it. And lastly for this shot, since it's back with the boxes, I'm gonna guess not a cursed item, but that the devil keeps a pet bird and just doesn't bring it during the episode. Before the next shot though, here are all the nondescript items in the shot that I don't think are meant to be anything specific. As usual though, let me know in the comments if they seem specific to you. In the next scene, they add a piggy bank, which there's nothing like that out there, but Friday the 13th series is an episode with a wood chipper that spits out cash if you feed it people, so maybe it produces money for you as you kill for for it. They also add another set of indistinct items, but let me know if you recognize them. There's also, I think, a telescope back here, which there are multiple cursed telescope stories, and they all basically allow you to look into the past, but it mysteriously leads to your demise. The cursed basketball he gives Principal Vagina is probably like all the other sports items. You're good at the sport, but basically stuck playing in some form or another. All the items the old lady picks up are added in just for the scene. No idea what this is, but a cursed lamp? Really? Maybe it's got a ghost attached to it like the vase? I doubt any of the stuff in the background of Rick's commercial was actually cursed. He thought it was all so stupid he probably just threw some random junk on the table to imply it was cursed. The monkey paw Summer has is a reference to the old 1902 novel where, as Summer implies with the simple wishes, yes, you get 3 wishes, but like a genie it will twist them to punish you. So by keeping all her wishes simple, she was able to avoid crazy consequences. And that's all for the cursed items. 51 plus like 30 some odd nondescript items. There's a very small number we see in the rest of the episode I'll comment on, but that's it for the shop itself. So with that out of the way, let's get back to the episode breakdown. Before it comes inside to meet Summer's new boss, Mr. Needful, aka the Devil, voiced by none other than Alfred Molina Doc Ock himself, but before Rick and Summer come in, he gives Goldenfold the aftershave. After they meet, obviously Rick immediately calls him out on being the Devil, but takes the microscope the Devil offers and leaves. Meanwhile, Morty is arguing with his dad about whether or not Pluto is a planet while not working on the school project. Morty gets annoyed and visits Rick, who says using the Devil's microscope would have made him the Arsler, to which they have the following back and forth.
I don't think you're allowed to say that word, you know?
Morty, I'm not disparaging the differently abled. I'm stating the fact that if I had used this microscope, it would have made me mentally retarded.
Okay, yeah, but I don't think it's about logic, Rick. I think the word has just become a symbolic issue for powerful groups that feel like they're doing the right thing.
Well, that's
Which Dan Harmon even stands by this usage, which is his right, but I do want to take a second to talk about. Because my only real question here, which is reductive, but that's the point, is would you use that word in the same light-hearted usage if you felt it applied to a friend who had a kid who was mentally handicapped? Or would you feel kind of weird using it against them, understanding that they, as someone who was living with it daily, might feel a little hurt or uncomfortable by the usage? Most decent people would feel the latter and just avoid saying it, even if they usually do. Well, the whole point is that you never know who has a family member or a person in their lives who are. Basically this scene from The Office if it was about this instead of being gay.
There could be others. I need to know. I don't want to offend anybody else.
You could assume everyone is and not say anything offensive.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone would appreciate me treating them like they were gay.
Meanwhile, Goldenfold is confronting the Devil, and in the background we can already see that Rick has the Curse Purge Plus storefront up, but he's about to learn his lesson about being comfortable with brainwashed sex when Rick steps in and saves the day. He then returns the microscope and uses his new scanner to scare away all the Devil's customers, causing he and the Devil to slap fight until Summer kicks him out. Meanwhile, Morty is still not getting to work on his school project while Jerry talks to NASA about changing Pluto back to planet status when they suddenly get abducted by aliens, or Plutonians at least. And yeah, this is the episode between Summer working for the Devil and the alien abduction. This is the episode they established that sci-fi stuff just kind of happens in this universe regardless of Rick. Like, these stories weren't even tied to Rick, and they're insane. But the Plutonians' architecture is pretty simplistic, which is fair. I mean, the animation department is getting put through it in this episode. They arrive at, I think, the Royal Palace, where the king greets them and escorts them to a very simply animated crowd of Plutonians, and Jerry is expected to state that Pluto is a planet. And good God, does the concept of ignoring the entire scientific community, but finding one dumb guy to agree with you in front of a crowd feel more applicable today than ever before. But Jerry gets cheered for, and we cut back to the shop where people are just taking the stuff by the armload, so the Devil asks why, and she points to the commercial on TV, and the Devil realizes he's across the street where we see him flipping them off, and rapid fire here. Cursed instruments, I assume, are like the other instruments Friday the 13th, where you use them to steal the talent and life force of better players, but it kills them, or wind up playing them till you die. Sports stuff, like all the sports stuff, probably makes you good at the sport, but you're stuck playing it till you die or in an infinite loop. This lady's actually holding an Appley, one of the fake Apple-based ad awards Jerry got during the simulation episode, I guess meaning that it's a real award in this world. The slippers are probably the Friday the 13th version of the shoes, which are about heels that make you popular but at the cost of having to kill people. There is a Friday the 13th episode about a camera like this that extends your life by sucking the soul out of the people you photograph. There is a movie called the suitcase about an evil suitcase, believe it or not, but the guy holding it I think is the bad guy during Baby Legs in the interdimensional cable episode. Suddenly everyone rushes to the shop to collect the items, and we get back to Pluto, where Jerry's on a talk show talking about Pluto being a planet when Morty gets approached by a scientist who tries to explain that the drilling of plutonium, which fun fact in real life does not exist on Pluto outside of the amount fueling a space probe we sent there. But he explains the drilling is shrinking the planet and that they need to get the Plutonians to stop drilling by getting his dad to admit Pluto is not a planet anymore because of the drilling. Meanwhile, Summer is sweeping and finds the last artifact and heads to the back office to tell the devil. In the back though, we see the stuff that is not supposed to be inventory, so it must just be the devil's personal stuff, starting with a mummy. I mean, it has to be someone he hates, right? Portrait of a soldier, a portrait of himself, very worn out version of his hat. I guess he really likes that design. A lion crest shield and helmet with swords, and a bird affixed to some kind of animal skull. A piece of cheese, and lastly, am I crazy or does this look like a Pokeball? But Summer uses 3 simple wishes with the monkey paw in order to save the devil from going back to hell, and convinces him they can build something better than the shop. So she takes the remaining cursed items over to Rick's shop and says they're filing for bankruptcy and restructuring. During this scene though, Rick says,
It's Rosemary's Baby!
which is the name of a horror movie from the 60s where basically a young woman ignores everyone's warnings about something obviously evil. Also, this lady has a cursed muffin tin? I got nothing for that one. But Summer leaves frustrated as Rick taunts her, but he also immediately gets bored now that he feels he won and torches the place. Meanwhile on Pluto, they're in a tiny limo and Morty's trying to convince Jerry for the good of the planet he has to tell the truth about Pluto's size. But Jerry obviously doesn't want to give up all the attention, so he just doubles down as they enter the gala for Pluto being a planet, I guess. So Morty interrupts it and confronts them with the facts about Pluto shrinkage, I guess, but Jerry starts talking about how Morty pooped himself as a kid, so Morty gives up. And this is honestly one of my favorite scenes of the season. I just love how it encapsulates Rick's loneliness and how he really is desperately reaching out for connection all the time, even if he spends so much effort pushing the people he wants to connect with away.
Hey, Morty, you wanna go on a... Oh. Hey, Beth? Hello? Hey, Jerry, you in here being stupid?
Like, he spends all this effort to piss Summer off, pushing her away and making her feel unloved, but he's dying to connect with everyone. It's a very real dichotomy a lot of people struggle with. It's also adorable how excited he gets to see Morty, but is embarrassed and hides it. God, he really is a tragic, sad figure. Anyways, Morty tells him he needs help with his science project, and back on Pluto, Jerry's still kissing ass and being told to talk more about how Pluto's a planet. But he then learns that the scientist warning everyone about the damage to Pluto is actually the king's son, and since it's a son and he has a son, I guess this just gets Jerry to change his mind and accept that Pluto's not a planet. And after announcing it to the crowd, which I loved the Master of All Science banner, he gets dumped back off at home. Meanwhile, Summer and the Devil have launched a website that curses people, and it's somehow doing great. So the Devil, being himself, turns on Summer and cuts her out. Meanwhile, Jerry wants to talk to Morty, but as he opens the door, we can see he was clearly whacking it. Jerry apologizes for making his insecurities Morty's problem, but continues to do so for the next 7 seasons. Soon to be 8. And Morty accepts the apology and, like a good parent, encourages Jerry to just be himself. Meanwhile, Rick's watching ball fondlers on interdimensional cable, and Summer approaches and they make up, both accepting some blame. And Rick suggests as payback they get shredded and kick the shit out of the devil, which they proceed to do in a compilation set to X Gon Give It To You. After the credits though, we actually see them beat up a Nazi, a bully who looks a lot like grown-up Randall Weems from Recess, and an actual sign that the Westboro Baptist Church protesters used, which changes from an F slur to a U for a few frames here. And lastly, a dude who definitely broke his dog's neck. But that's all I've got for this episode. Sorry it took so long to finish. If you noticed anything I missed, leave it in the comments. I'm working on episode 10 right now, as well as the new American Dad episode. Getting excited for the new season premiere of Rick and Morty in a few weeks, so subscribe if you love animated sitcoms. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see me cover, and I'll see you in the next video.